Hi and welcome to my YouTube channel. I am Ashley and I am the owner and CEO of Unabashedlyou, which I'll link below. I create beautiful artwork with pops of color, and it was birthed from a desire to see women who look like me represented in a positive way. In this tutorial, we will be using Procreate. For information on how to download, how much it costs, please see my link below. Lastly, my tutorials are designed to be nice and relaxing, so feel free to get a glass of wine, cup of tea, get real comfy, and let's get started. Hi, welcome to Draw With Me. Today we're going to be drawing a nose. So we're going to be starting with a screen size canvas in Procreate. We're going to make sure that we have our studio pen selected. You can find that under inking, studio pen. And then we're going to make sure that our studio pen is black and that the size is 4. So we're going to start with the outline of our nose. As you can see, noses have a bridge and then it curves under, and then the nostrils come out from that curve. So for today's tutorial, we're going to be drawing the nose from a slightly angled position, kind of like this. So we're going to have our bridge here and the curve, a nostril that comes out here, a nostril that comes out here. So let's go ahead and do that outline. So I'm going to start a little bit of a curve from where the eyebrows will meet the nose bridge. And then make a little bit of a bump. So what we just did is we created this portion, we followed this line down like that. Then we're going to do the nostrils that come out towards the side. One nostril is going to come out here, and then we're going to have another nostril that comes out on this side, and it's just a little bit of the nostril that we'll see. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a new layer, and we're going to make sure that that blank layer is underneath the outline layer. If it's not underneath the outline layer, whatever we do and whatever we color is going to cover the outline. Now on that layer underneath, we're just going to create kind of a skin tone around the nose so that we can begin our shading. So we're going to make sure that we have our airbrush, our medium brush under airbrushing selected. And then we're going to go ahead and select a skin tone. I like to go in between orange and red. And as you can see, you get all of the different shades right in the middle. So I'm going to go ahead and stick around here. And we're basically just going to create, make sure you're on that blank layer. We're going to create the skin tone that goes underneath. And just color enough of the skin tone so that we can actually kind of get into shading the nose. So once you have that base skin tone layer, we're going to create another layer on top of that because we're going to start the shading. And we want the shading to be on a different layer just in case we want to adjust the shading at any time. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with the darker shadows. So all my makeup girlies, if you're used to doing your highlights and your shadows and putting like a full face of makeup on, then you'll understand. We're basically just doing that, but we're drawing it on instead of using our makeup to create it on our face. So as you can see, we have shade here, here. This is the darker shaded areas around here. It hits underneath the nose, it hits along the bridge, the other side of the bridge. And then it kind of curves around here and does a little bit of shading here. So we're going to create a darker shade. And then we're going to go ahead and go in and shade around. So just make sure we just kind of follow the shades that I was just explaining to you on my face. We're going to make sure we follow those curves. This technique of shading takes a little bit of getting used to because it requires you to alter the pressure of the brush as you're coloring. And we're going to make sure that we have the shading going on the other side of the bridge here. There we go. And on those places where the nose curves, just make sure you kind of follow that curve, because when you're shading, that's going to follow that curve, as you can see. So we just follow that curve. And so just to give you an example of why layers are so important, if I wanted to make this shading darker because I've decided, it's not dark enough, I want it to be a little bit more pronounced. So I can select that layer, then I can go up here to this magic wand with the little sparkles on the side. I can select hue, saturation, and brightness. And then I can take this brightness slider and I can make that shading darker or lighter without affecting the other layers. So say I want to make it just slightly darker because I want it to be a little bit more pronounced. And then I simply just go up here and tap that wand again and it deselects it. So now I'm going to go ahead and do the highlights. I'm going to create another layer here, a blank layer. And remember, I want the highlights to be on top of the shadow, so I'm going to create this new layer on top of the shadow layer. And then I'm going to take this base layer of color and I'm going to make it even lighter. And so now we're going to be doing these highlights. As you can see, there's a highlight that goes here. There's a little bit of a circular highlight around the tip, the ball of the nose. There's a little bit of a highlight here, and a little bit of a highlight here. We're just going to go ahead and create that with our pen. So once you have a lighter color selected, we're going to go ahead and draw that highlight that goes along the side of the nose. And then there's a little bit of a circular point at the tip. And then there's some shading that happens here along the side of the nostril, and a little bit of shading that happens here on the other side. So once we kind of have that down, and you don't want to press too hard, you want to kind of shade it in. What I like to do is I like to go even lighter, and I'll make my brush smaller, and I'll just do a line down the middle just to create kind of like a layered effect on the highlights. And then if you're happy with your highlights, we can go ahead and do the nostrils. So because the nostrils are darker, I'm going to actually create a layer on top of the base layer that's underneath the shadows, because this is going to be even darker than the shadows. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that base layer color and I'm going to go really dark, not all the way black, but pretty dark, because we're going to be doing the inside of the nostrils. And I'm going to go ahead and zoom in here, make sure you're on that blank layer, and then we're going to go ahead and shade in the nostrils. As you get closer to the outside of the nostril area here, you want to kind of lift your brush, the pressure of your brush a little bit, because the closer you are to the portion where the light is hitting, the less dark it's going to be. And then we're going to do the same on the other side. And again, a reason why layers are so important, I've decided I kind of want the nostrils to be a little bit darker than that, because I feel like the difference in the shading should be darker. So what I can do is I can select that layer of the nostrils, go to my magic wand, hit hue, saturation, and brightness, and then I can bring the shade of that down just a little bit, make it slightly darker. Then I'll select the wand again, and there you have it, a nose. So this is the kind of nose that I'll use for my stickers and my clip art. If I'm drawing a nose that needs to be a lot more detailed, kind of like my flower series and my collage that you'll see on the homepage of my website, I'm actually going to do a lot more technical shading. Things like the line that comes around the nose that hits the cheekbone. There's a lot more shading that goes underneath when it's hitting the mouth, the top lip of the mouth. There's a lot more hues that are going into the actual shading of the nose where the eyes hit the nose. So there's a lot more technicality that goes into it when you're doing a really high detailed kind of drawing. But even without the high level of shading, this nose looks pretty good. So that concludes this tutorial. I hope you enjoyed. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. You can also follow me on Instagram and TikTok. And I have a shop online at Unabashedlyou. Everything will be linked below. God bless.